Velkommen tilbage efter frokosten. Og som en sagde til mig, da vedkommende kom gående med ost på tallerkenen, hvor er kaffen? Ja, men man kan da ikke drikke kaffe hele tiden. Man drikker da ikke kaffe til ost. Så siger jeg, nej, der drikker man rødvin, men det er der så øvrigt heller. Men altså, jeg kan godt mærke, at det der med kaffe, det er noget, som jeg skal lære meget, meget mere om. Så det må jeg til at gøre. Men jeg håber, at det i virkeligheden er de største udfordringer, der er med arrangementet. Fordi bag det hele her gemmer sig en alvor, som jo er enorm. Og jeg håber, at I undskylder mig, at jeg nu skifter til mit ufuldendte engelsk, because I want to, in just a minute, I want to greet and say hello to our two, I could say, put it like this, panel members. I'm very honored that you, Mykhailo, ambassador to Ukraine, to Denmark, Ukraine ambassador to Denmark, and Benjamin Kürstein from TV2 just returned from Ukraine yesterday, that you will participate here today. Please enter the stage. We are going, yes, give them applause. We are going to hear something about a world and a war, things that are so very far away from what we experience here in Denmark every day. And even though it is in our foreyard or backyard, you decide, but it is in Europe just next to. The words are yours. Thank you for coming, both of you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Ambassador, nice to see you again. We spoke before, you remember, but I did too. And I think before we start, because we're going to talk about the future in Ukraine and for Ukraine today. But before we do that, can you just give me and the audience here a brief understanding on the situation in Ukraine right now? What's your take on the situation in the country?
Of course, yeah. Hello everyone. And first allow me to say thank you for coming here today, for being with me today, and to have a chance also to ask me different questions, whatever you have. And also thank you for your support. Believe me, I mean, we in Ukraine already know Denmark, as a hero country for us, because you are relatively small, let's say this way, but you have a big heart. And all your effort, everyday support which comes to Ukraine, believe me, it matters a lot for us. So thank you for that. Now, regarding the situation in the country. The war continues. Unfortunately, it continues for so long, and we are suffering a lot. We are losing thousands of best Ukrainian people, a lot of destructions, a lot of hopes are gone. People' main goal is now to survive. And on the other hand, we, comparing to us, let's say a year ago, we are much more in the optimistic mood, because we already know that Russians are not capable to occupy all our territory. We already see that they do not have enough resources for that, and in the coming several years they will not be able to gain back this power. So our now main task is to push them out of our territory. How to do it? It's a very difficult question and issue. because Russians are still big. They have huge resources. They have more than 400,000 of troops on our territory. If you compare to the Danish army, I would say it's almost 20 times bigger than you have. They have a lot still of ammunition, a lot of artillery. They have, unfortunately for us, superiority in the sky. They have jets, and most dangerous what they still possess is missile and drones, which are causing every day big problems for Ukrainians, for civilian population, and quite recently, unfortunately, you heard from the media that they killed with one missile more than 50 people in one place, just innocent people who came actually to the funeral. So it's a huge challenge for the country. But the good thing is here, if I may say this way, is that initiative is on our side. We started counter-offensive operation, so we are moving and Russians are defending. We are on a daily basis grabbing some piece of our territory back. It's very difficult. At some point, I may say that probably we even lost a little bit of momentum when we could do it easier, but we were lacking resources. So we were lacking ammunition, we were lacking heavy artillery. And that was the reason why we needed time before European and United States partners could deliver us at least what we need to do this. So Russians use this time to dig trenches, to build multi-layered defense capabilities there, and to mine heavily the territory. This is a huge problem for us. In addition to that, as I said, they unfortunately have a technology which partly they also probably bought or received from Iran. They are capable to produce drones. And these drones, together with reconnaissance drones, surveillance, etc., they causes huge problem for us because we cannot concentrate, let's say, heavy artillery in the area where we would make a breakthrough, let's say, through their trenches, because they see us and they attack us immediately. So we have to put, tanks and heavy artillery in a different, let's say, places, not to concentrate them as, let's say, the military guys would prefer in one place and then attack them. So, yeah, the war continues. But as I said, we are in a quite optimistic mood now.
And as I can hear from your answer, the war is everything right now. And I was thinking about this. I was in Ukraine for the last week and just got back yesterday, as Peter mentioned. And I was wondering, having this conversation with you today, is it fair? Is now the time to have the conversation about the future of Ukraine, or is that too soon?
Look, we always, I think since the very first day of the war, we are thinking about the future. Because, otherwise you lose faith and then you probably are lost. So for sure, it's always the right time to speak about the future. But I would be also frank with you, it's very hard to predict what this future will be for us. Today you saw a horrible attack of Hamas on Israel. So things are changing so rapidly in the, let's say, global world that we don't know what will happen in a week or two. Maybe Putin will die. Maybe there will be a coup d'etat in Russia. You are, at some point a little bit laughing, but you all remember what Prigozhin did, 1 or 2 months already ago, in the midsummer. So we know that things are developing very fast. And that means that when, for example, when many people are asking, what do you think, how long the war will last, or when it will end, and etc. We say it may end in 2-3 weeks because of different things which may happen in Russia unexpectedly. So yes, it's good time even to speak now about the future of the country, because this is one of the reasons why we are so bravely fighting for it. We are fighting for the future of our children and for the future of our country. the country which should be a full-fledged member of the EU and NATO, the country which shares the same value as you are sharing, that freedom of speech, freedom of expression, that freedom of election and choice to elect whoever you want to see in the government of your country belongs to you, to the population. That's what is the cornerstone, let's say, and the backbone for our fight now, and that's how we see what the reason we are fighting for.
You almost start answering my next question, but anyway, I mean, you sit here both as a person but also as the representative of your government. Can you say a little bit more in detail about how the government of Ukraine envisions, sees the future Ukraine? What kind of country are we talking about?
Yes, sure. Now, of course, the main task is to receive necessary volumes of ammunition and heavy artillery. And of course, ideally, we don't hide this fact, is to receive jets. F-16 are now in the process of being received soon by Ukraine after the training of the pilots are over. So this is, let's say, the short-term perspective for us, to win the war, to push them out of our territory. What will be these peace negotiations in the future? We will see, because it may have different scenario also for us. Ideal scenario is that Russia would withdraw all their troops, return the territories back, start compensating all the losses which it caused to Ukrainian society and the country. And what is also very important, that all those who committed these horrible crimes, starting from Putin and ending with an ordinary soldier, should be punished and should be held accountable. That's extremely important part of the peace agreement or negotiations in the future. Now, coming back to how we see our future. Of course, as I started saying, it's EU and NATO membership. There are several rational reasons why we want to become members of EU and NATO. First, if you speak now about the economic development, the war shows that without security, you cannot think about business. So security matters a lot. And again, as this war shows, we are very interconnected. So although the war is in Ukraine, which is still like 1,500 kilometers away from Danish border, but you can smell it already in the air because it affects also your business. So for us, security is issue number one, which means, we want to join NATO. Why? Because all our efforts to become neutral, all our efforts to have Budapest Memorandum signed with Russia, to be polite to Russia, to give all nuclear arsenal to Russians. Besides that, not many of you knows that we also gave ballistic missiles to Russians under this agreement, which actually they are now using against us because we have all the numbers, of these missiles which we gave back, and now we find them on the battlefield. So it's extremely important issue now for us to become NATO member, because we see our stability and security in the continent, not just within Ukraine, but in the continent, it's through the enlargement of NATO. Don't already buy these, arguments from Russians that expansion of NATO is the reason for this war. Sorry to say, undiplomatically, it's a bullshit. It's the opposite way. Only by having you on board, by expanding this group of countries which respect democracy and rules of law, only through these allies you are capable to keep, if I may say so, under control your foreign borders, and nobody dares to attack you because you are together. So this is also how we see our future from the security point of view. And then, when security will be in place, of course, the main strategy will be to develop a European prosperous country. And here we also rely a lot on your support. And I will tell you why. Because we have here a mutual interest. For us, you may imagine, now a huge part of Ukraine and Ukrainian infrastructure is destroyed. Unfortunately, we don't have even access to the occupied territory, so we cannot see what happened there. But I imagine, and also satellite images show that a lot of buildings, infrastructure, bridges, whatever you say, ports are destroyed. Second big issue will be mental health of our people. So you may imagine, even now you are traveling to Ukraine and you know how is it to sleep at night and having, as I read, even application in your mobile phone being always on, and you are thinking, okay, should I go to the shelter or maybe continue sleeping? So it's very stressful. I'm not saying that if your father is in the front or brother and every day you call and just try to hear his voice, that he picks up the phone because he is alive. So mentally, Ukrainian citizens will need a lot of rehabilitation. And how to do it? Again, through economic recovery. It's a huge issue. If we start speaking about, let's say, the rebuilding of Ukraine, it will be of vital importance for us to have you on board. And here you will also benefit, because I'm strongly, 100% sure that whatever we will do in Ukraine, we will need a lot of your equipment, technologies, and products, and labor, and engineering. I will bring you only one example. When we built, even before the war, a house, I built a house, my private house in Ukraine. So I would say that maybe 30% of the house was produced in Ukraine. I mean, house materials. Cement, maybe steel, I don't know, gravel, beton, some other parts, bricks and others, wood. All the rest, it was import, unfortunately for us, but it's true. So we were buying a lot from European countries, because we want to have a good quality products in Ukraine. And they are produced, unfortunately, or fortunately for you, in Europe. So 70% of my investments into my house actually were, exported to your country. So your companies benefited from that. The same will happen, but in a much bigger scale in Ukraine during the reconstruction. We will need a lot, enormous resources from you in terms of building material. If your company will be ready, and we will encourage you to do so, to invest in Ukraine and to localize the production, which means that, again, a lot of equipment should be, again, delivered to Ukraine. And this equipment is produced abroad. So we will pay a huge amount of money to your producers, so asking them, please come and help us to rebuild the country. And it will create a big driving force for your economies as well. So we see this future, again, together with you, as a huge, upward trend of economic development within the European continent. Because again, we already can see your data, your experience of trading with neighboring countries. So this common market proves to be extremely efficient. The trade turnover between Denmark and neighboring, let's say, Sweden or Germany exceeds several times your trade with, let's say, before the war with Russia. Although you think that Russia is a big market or whatever, but you would be surprised that this exactly, common market matters a lot. So that is why we want to also create this common market together with you, because we feel the same way. So that's how we see the future. And this reconstruction will be also as a psychological, I may say it, medicine for Ukrainians, as a pill that you take and then you slowly recover from these mental problems, because you may imagine, as I said, we will receive, unfortunately, already now thousands, if not dozens of thousands of wounded people who lost their limbs. And most of them are men, quite, in a young age, between 25 and 35 years old. And those men probably will need state support, because they cannot work anymore as a normal person because he lost two legs. Or we still have 11 million, if I'm not wrong, of pensioners who are left in Ukraine now. Some of them also moved out together with their children, for example, or with their grandchildren to your country, including. But they will come back, which means it will be a big issue for the state budget to pay all these pensions, because they don't generate profit. They are just consuming, this money from a state budget. So where to take this money? Of course from the industry, and that's the biggest challenge for us. So if we work together, if we would say that politically we are in the club, yes, we will have to fight corruption, yes, we have to execute to do internal reforms. We will do it, but we will do it only on condition that we will see that you are also helping us, to become this good partner for you. So when we have this collaboration, you will also help us, our people, think about, very positively about the development. Because, believe me, Russians will never stop trying to interfere somehow into Ukraine. They will play with the fact that, you see, you are not developing fast, you are abandoned, was it worth to fight for so heavily, to lose so many people, and at the end you have destroyed country, nobody takes care of you, and that's it. So they will politically try to interfere, and they will be able to do it because we try to build a democratic society where everybody has the right to express its opinion. So they will use this tool. But for us it will be a challenge again and a huge task to continue this development of the country in a way which we see as our future.
Denmark has taken on a special role at the request of your president Zelensky in the southern city of Mykhailo. I've been there several times and seen both the damage and some of the work that's happening there. Do you see that as a model maybe for other countries who want to help in Ukraine?
Look, we have, as for us, yes, we see it as a model, and actually our collaboration with your country proved that this model deserves to be copy-pasted at some point and deserves to be developed. Why? Because if you look at other countries, we already established quite close collaboration with your governmental structures and also some investments funds like IFO. We already have local representative. Denmark opened your office, a small office in Mykhailo. So things are moving quite fast as for me, and we already started repairing some schools and hospitals, and I hope that by the end of the year we already will see first results of this collaboration. I will tell you, maybe, I don't know, we have a camera here, but I will tell you at some point what I feel from other big countries, including, for example, the United States. When I speak to my colleagues here from the US Embassy, I already feel that they would like to join your efforts in the reconstruction. Meaning that what they see that Denmark is successful in establishing these already structures, they would like to join. They say, we have quite a huge amount of money who are waiting where to be invested. But they are a little bit, how to say, still afraid or concerned, or which way I may use. They don't know to that extent Ukraine, for example, yeah? So they are searching for the partners. Actually, the same as probably some of the Danish companies are also willing to do it this way. And we see that when we develop this good structural already collaboration with Denmark, then Americans can add on to it. They say if Denmark will, let's say, invest 50 million, we can add 500 million to this collaboration. So this is also one of the ways how we think we can develop this joint, let's say, project with you. Yes, there are countries which prefer to say, instead of focusing on one region, we want to help you to rebuild, let's say, I don't know, energy in general, in every region which suffers from the destruction, or medical system, let's say schools or education or hospitals. Yeah, so some of the countries of the EU offer this kind of solution when they say we have a knowledge in, let's say, in construction of hospitals, so we would like to build all hospitals in different cities. It is also fine. And by the way, we also, when speaking about reconstruction of Mykhailo, we also say that Denmark is not only limited to this region or city. Yes, quite huge amount of resources now go towards the city, but we try to use this model to test how we collaborate, how we feel each other, which problems we have. Maybe some, I don't know, permits are lacking, maybe some paperwork, maybe we can find the right developer locally, or some skillful engineers who speak Danish. Of course, it would be ideal, at least English. So we are testing now things, including the financial part. many businessmen are still afraid for natural reason. Yeah, what will happen to my investments if a missile will come and destroy the logistic hub or hotel or whatever I want to build, a shop or a factory. Yeah, so now we are slowly trying, to develop these things where you will be insured from the war risk already now at this stage. And this is returning again back to your question, why we are speaking about the future. Because every even investment project takes time from starting the dialogue on it and starting already implementing. Usually it's between 9 and 12 months when the investors start building something, before the decision is taken. So that means that we also hope that the war will not last for 10 years, that the war will be over sooner than later. And then we will already be prepared to start building something instead of starting only a discussion. What should we build, where, in which place? So this is also how we see it.
And maybe you can help me here. You have a better understanding, but as I remember, in the beginning of the war at least, there was a huge support from ordinary people who want to help Ukraine. Do you still feel that? And if anybody in this room feels like helping Ukraine, what should they do?
Yes, we do still feel that. Yes, it's true that maybe the amount of calls we receive at the embassy are much lower than it was when the war just started. But there is also an explanation to this fact, and in my view, it's fine. Meaning that, the first couple of months it was really very challenging for Ukraine. Will we be able to resist this invasion or not? Will we be able to fight or not? So it was for sure a very chaotic, let's say, reaction from our side, how to help, how to better do, in which way. Sometimes we were receiving too much of clothes and, let's say, no medicaments, or vice versa. We were receiving some medicaments like, let's say, Panadil, and maybe the amount of this Panadil we received was so huge that it was enough for, let's say, I don't know, half of the country to provide it within, the next year. And instead, we didn't receive enough insulin, for example, from Novo Nordisk or others. So it was the case, that when everybody wanted to help, and we are extremely grateful for that reaction. Now we are trying to coordinate already this assistance, to be more focused, to say that, look, our economy is still doing well, if I may say, to some extent this way. So we can produce locally food, so there is no need, let's say, to bring food from Denmark anymore. But instead, you may help us to do this or that. For example, unfortunately, again, one of the issues, and actually maybe using this opportunity, I may kindly ask you also to consider it. Because of the bombardments and clashes on the front line, a lot of people, especially soldiers, are losing hearing because of the shell explosion and shell contusia, or how it is called. And without hearing tool, they cannot hear, and they need time to recover. And that also makes that they wanted to continue fighting, let's say, but without even this hearing tool, they are not capable, to join their people at the front. So things, for example, like hearing tool are extremely needed now, and it's thousands of pieces we need. The same goes to the wheelchairs. So we have, unfortunately, as I said, a lot of people who lost their limbs or are wounded and need care from nurses or their family members, but they cannot move because they simply don't have wheelchairs, in such a big numbers as we might need. So any second hand, we don't need a new one, but second hand which still are capable to be used. So these are, let's say, small things which we are now speaking to the colleagues when they're asking what kind of assistance you need. A huge part last winter was these generators, and I'm actually extremely grateful to Rotary Club from Odense, because I know that you immediately reacted and you delivered quite a big numbers of generators also to Kyiv, which is has a relationship with Odense. on the city-to-city level. So I am afraid, unfortunately, that this scenario will repeat this winter again. Yes, we are now more prepared. Yes, we are building some shelters over the transformer system. Yes, we buy a little bit in more numbers the transformers, which potentially will be used as a repairment, let's say, of things. But still, I'm afraid it will be also an issue. Yeah, how to help, because I mean the country is huge, and how to avoid these blackouts, how to avoid these problems, how at least to provide the minimum level for medical institutions, for the hospitals, so that they could autonomously continue working despite the blackouts. So this will be also another way how we potentially may collaborate with you. Small things which we never say so loudly, but we are working on it, is the tires. Tires for cars. A life of a car on the front is between 1 week and 2 weeks maximum. A life of a tire on the front line, yeah, is between 2 and 5 days. I didn't know it honestly, but when I spoke also to the colleagues from the front line, they say the first thing we are doing when we make some special operations, we try to take bags with sand and cover the tires. So when we come, close to the front line, the first thing we do, we cover the tires with the bags of the sand, and then we do the operations, and then when we try to escape quickly so that the car would run. Sometimes they say we were driving without even tires because they are completely gone. But this is also an issue. So second-hand tires, it's also a big challenge for us. So we already collaborate. You have such organization called Ukraine, I think Cars for Ukraine. They already delivered, I think, 1,000 tires. I know that Denmark is not huge, but still, maybe you have. And the same goes to the mobile tire changer equipment, which you can do the things close to the front line, you cannot take a car, far away. So these are also smaller, but things which we can do together.
That's very interesting. Jumping back to the future a little bit again, a big part of the conversation, and you've talked about it already, is where Ukraine belongs, and probably also a reason for the war, right? I mean, partly. This Monday, all of the European foreign ministers were in Kiev, sending a signal that Ukraine belongs in the EU and is a part of the European club. But is the country ready for that?
Look, honestly speaking, I would say that mentally yes, but we still have to do some homework. And as I already mentioned before, I also remember the quote of your foreign minister that finally it is not anymore a question of if, but rather of when. And we are grateful for this approach, because I think it's a win-win scenario for me as a Ukrainian person, but for the country and also for the EU in itself. Because you are not alone on the map. You see in the global world that there are powers who want to dictate also their rules. And unfortunately for us, those who share these democratic values, these powers, first and foremost, Russia, you can look at the UN Assembly voting, who supports Russia. So you have countries who supports Russia, who supports this dictatorship. You have also the potential threat of China attacking, Taiwan or trying, to use military force to dictate its own rule. So it's very dangerous development. And in our view, why it's a win-win scenario when Ukraine will join the EU and NATO? Because I think finally politicians realize that enlargement in itself, this tool which helps us to spread our vision of the world based on democratic values, and to compete against the other, let's say, camps which want to say that dictatorship, that power, that matters, and not something like UN Charter, that territorial integrity or other things. So that is why, politically speaking, it's extremely important, as we see it for the EU, not to be focused on internal development, but rather, to think a little bit wider about your future. This is first thing. And second, yes, you rightly mentioned that, are we prepared? Yes, we are preparing. Even despite the war, we are executing a lot of different reforms which are on our table. What is also for us, let's say, very important is our people who are now living abroad, who are now living in Denmark, in Germany, in Poland, in European, let's say, countries. We also count very much on them. They should return home, and they will return home already with this, I sometimes call it vaccine injection, against this post-Soviet or old Soviet or way of thinking. So they completely changed their mindset. They completely realized that EU rules, let's say, or the society you are based on such rules are very beneficial for person, for human beings. So that is why we think that, we already have no other choice but to move towards European family, because we will have these people. And the same goes to the soldiers you just mentioned. Probably it's true, one of the reasons why we have this war is exactly that Ukraine already disagrees with Putin's vision of the future of the world. We don't want to be part of Russia anymore. We don't want to go back. We want to go to the future. So we will do our reforms, and we very much hope that these moves will be from both sides, so that you will help us also to do this homework, to prepare us to become EU member.
And I think we'll open up for questions in a few minutes, but I just have one more question, and it's, you talk about the post-Soviet state. Ukraine also had a bad reputation after the fall of the wall, and being called the blackmail state. And you still hear me? Okay, good. And when I talk to people in Ukraine, put this one up here. Of course, it's the war that's the big question, right? Everybody is concerned about the war, but the second big question is still the corruption. President Zelensky was elected on an agenda to fight corruption. I know you are pushing through reforms, but it's still there. What is Ukraine doing to fight that war at the same time as the war against Russia?
I will, if you allow me, say a little bit, from the same, let's say, topic, but from another corner. Sometimes I'm questioning myself, I will be frank with you, why Denmark, for example, is so, eagerly helping Ukraine, comparing to other countries. And I came at some point to the conclusion that the level of support of the foreign countries towards Ukraine equals the position of the countries in the list of, let's say, in terms of corruption. So the least corrupted countries you are, the more help we receive. Why is it so? Because when corruption doesn't matter, it will be very difficult to persuade you to close the eyes on what's happening in Ukraine, because Russia is offering you cheaper gas or offering you better, or even cash, just to bribe you. So this is very interlinked things. Soviet Union was built on this phenomenon of corruption. We remember very well, the slogan was to make everybody equal, but deep inside, I was warned that corruption has a big part in the life of ordinary people, because you were having very limited access to small things which a human person needs. You couldn't even buy good quality shoes in Soviet Union without having someone who knows that, that tomorrow these shoes from Czech Republic will come to the shop, but there will be only 2 pairs of the right size. So if you give me 10, rubles in the past, then I can hide it, behind in the shop, and then you will come. So the corruption was ideal tool to influence on people, because when you are corrupted, you already feel guilty, And you already expect that the police will come sooner or later to you because you committed already something. So that was the way how to control the population. If you look at every country where these democratic changes are not on the right level, then you would see that one of the huge reasons for that is corruption in these countries, or dictatorship. But dictatorship is also equal to corruption, because that means that if you want to have some privilege in the country, you should always give the bribe to those who are ruling the country. So this is the Soviet past, and this is Russia's today's or present, and this is what they also try to spread. You remember also these cases with Austrian politicians who were corrupted, with Italian politicians who were bribed, with much more whom we didn't know, even pardon to say, but Danske Bank also was somehow involved into this bad phenomenon. So, and sometimes you may compare what is better, to whitewash so many billions of money, or the whole corruption system in Ukraine was only maybe 20 or 30 billions of US dollars. So, I mean, how to compare the corruption level? But without saying this, Ukraine, tries to eradicate this phenomenon from our society. And again, why we are so, let's say, sure that we will manage to do it? It's because of these Ukrainian people, between 4 to 6 million, including children who are now living in European, let's say, environment. They will come home, and I'm not sure they will not tolerate anymore, these bribes, to a doctor or to a teacher in school or to because it starts with the small things, or to a policeman who stopped you because you exceeded the speed. And then it grows, because you get used to it. It's like a part of your life. It's okay if you give something. So this is one thing. A second thing is the soldiers on the front line. I'm more than sure that they will not tolerate anymore this behavior on behalf of those who are in power, or in the government or in the police. So we will have this, injection of non-tolerance towards corruption already done through this. Unfortunately, we pay the highest price now. But through these changes, because of even of the war, Ukraine will tackle this issue. And second thing, why we are also, I as ambassador so eagerly try to explain to my colleagues from your government that please keep us on board of the EU and NATO enlargement, because this enlargement is also these medicaments against corruption and against this, different things in the countries. Corruption exists, look, in Hungary, in Poland, you also know, it's not only Ukrainian, special things. But at some point, Russia invested also heavily into this propaganda machine in order to build Ukraine as a failed state, a state with huge amount of corruption. And that was at some point also, in my view, a mistake of the political leaders of the European countries in the past, who didn't see us as a separate, let's say, country from Russia. If you look a little bit backward, after collapse of Soviet Union, everybody was focusing on Moscow first, and only through Moscow they were looking at other countries, at other republics of Soviet Union. Be it investments, so big companies first started to establish their offices in Moscow, and then go a little bit lower to Kyiv, to Kazakhstan, or to Belarus. So we fell a little bit of victim of this approach, because also our partners in Europe didn't see us as really something, as a subject in this global world, as the country who has its own history, who has its own vision, and actually who tries and who shares the same approach as you are. Because we were always a victim of this Russian imperialistic regime, who were always banning the use of Ukrainian language. They were banning us from being able to travel somewhere. They didn't allow us to build our own diplomatic service even, so everything was done in Moscow. So yes, now it's time for us, to rebuild the country at some point. That's maybe a long, answer to your question, but just wanted to understand, to explain how we see it.
No, it's very helpful, and I learned a lot. I hope you did as well. If anybody wants to ask the ambassador any questions, we have a couple of mics that can go around. And if somebody wants to do it in Danish, I'll be happy to translate also.
Thank you. Привіт. Your Excellency, I would like to ask you, you mentioned earlier that one of your biggest wishes is that everyone who is accountable for this, from Putin to the last Russian soldier, is brought to justice. If that happens, do you think that the Ukrainian people could ever forgive Russia and work with them again?
Look, I think yes, because we are human beings. You all remember this horrible period when Hitler was in power, of the Second World War. But now I think you coexist peacefully with Germany, and you travel there, and you have a lot of German people coming here, and you have a good relationship. So for us, probably it will be the same scenario, perhaps not so fast, maybe not with this generation. Why not with this generation? Because we see already that some people may say, as journalists, that this is because of Russian propaganda. They have been brainwashed. Some people say, this is because of other factors. In our view, because we lived within this environment, let's say, within this Russian imperialistic, let's say, way of thinking for quite a long period of time, more than 300 years. And we know that this is unfortunately the mindset they have built for centuries, to dominate. If you look at different colonies and big empires in the past, quite many, for example, Britain, they were owners of 20 or 25% of the world. But their colonies were far away from Britain. And in order to keep controlling these colonies, on such a big distance, you cannot have, let's say, millions of soldiers in your possession. So at some point, you had to deal with local representatives, so to say, whom you designated as a representative of the metropolis, and to deal with them, and so to say that on behalf of the queen or of the king, you take the taxes or whatever, you send all the assets from this colony to Britain, but in return you have also something, because otherwise it will not work. In Russia, this was, in my view, one of the maybe few, if not the only empire in the present world, or let's say in the past 100 to 200 years, that was growing by conquering only neighboring countries. So Russia never had any colony in Africa or in India or whatever, in Asia. It was always growing by occupying the territories in the neighborhood. And the only way to keep controlling these territories was by having a big number of troops, of army. So that's the reason why Russia always built the colonies or its empire based on a simple approach to dominate. Russia should be on the top of everything. They have hundreds of nationalities in Russia, of different small peoples whom they conquered and occupied. Tatars people, Chechens, Caucasus, so different nationalities, but they made of them that they are all Russians, because they say they speak Russian, so they are Russians. The same narrative they use against Ukrainians as well. You are a piece of our folk. Although the history proves that Kyiv has 1,500 years of history and Moscow was established only 600 years later, but they still say that we are part of Russia. I would say, to be very honest, that maybe they are part of some of the Ukrainian folk and not vice versa. And that when the president was asked that we are part of Russia, then he would say, if it was the case, then a yellow-blue flag would hang over Kremlin, roof, but it's not the case. So this is the way how we see, and yes, to forgive it to the Russians, they should come through this understanding that the way they built their country was wrong, that this domination in the 21st century is against the rules, that you should respect your neighbor, you should respect other nations, other religious groups, other people, you should live in a peaceful way and not create any aggression against each other. So if they realize it, then we may forgive them. But until then, I assume, it will take some time.
Any other questions?
I have a question, sir. I would really like to ask, how does Ukraine, from an Ukrainian point of view, look at all the people who are not being in Ukraine but are working all over over Europe and actually all over the world?
Look, one of our power is exactly what you say. Our people who are working abroad, who were working abroad or living abroad. Unfortunately, in our history, we had so many different waves of migrations, from people who were fleeing from the Stalin regime, from the Soviet regime during Second World War. And so we were always persecuted. And at some point, it became nowadays a little bit of our asset, because those people suddenly opened their doors. I'll be also frank with you, even, we have, I think, between 35 and 40,000 Ukrainians coming to Denmark. But if you look to whom they came, so I think the vast majority of those people came to their relatives or friends, Ukrainians who already lived in Denmark before. Or they knew somebody, that from Danish families who said, you may come. And the same happened if you look, at Germany, at Poland. Why 2 million are living in Poland? Because before the war we had almost 1 million traveling to Poland and backward for seasonal works or whatever, because we were not allowed to have a temporary residence permit, so a work permit were not allowed, so only in some special cases. And these people are now heavily helping us. And honestly speaking, because of these Ukrainians at some point, and theirs could, in my view, they, if I may say this way, behaved quite well. I have only very positive, let's say, reaction from the Danes about Ukrainian, before even the war, living and working in Denmark. They are easygoing people, they try to learn your language, they try also to, to how somehow, let's say, to work within the society they are living in. Their children go to your school. So in my view, they are not creating so much migration, let's say, problems for your society as perhaps maybe some other nations. And this is a huge asset in our hands, because you realize that we are almost the same people. And based on this, you are maybe, it's our understanding, are trying to help us so much, because you see a lot of similarities between you and us. So I'm fine when people are working abroad. When we met recently with the president, we had ambassadorial meeting in Ukraine, and also we had our chief commander, Zelensky, General Zelensky, with us. Sometimes we're asking, for example, about mobilization, about who should work and who should not, who should go, why not so many men are going to the front, and instead having beer in the pubs in Kyiv or in Lviv. So people from the front line say, look, not every man is born to be a soldier, and someone may do this job, someone may not, and sometimes it's better that this guy would work, pay taxes, and give money to buy drones, and then others who are more professional, who have this, mindset to fight, they should fight. Because these, weak, let's say, men on the front sometimes may cause more problems for the other soldiers than just to be present on the front line. So I think, for me, it's okay. The main thing is that we shouldn't forget that the war is still there, that we shouldn't be relaxed, and we should mostly focus what, every day. That's at least how I feel. What I have done for my country today, what communication will come tomorrow, in 2 weeks, in 10 days, whom should I call, whom should I ask, whom should I write in order to continue, because the war is still there, to continue this support.
Дуже добре. Дякую.
Дякую.
Jeg har også et spørgsmål. I have a question as well. Thank you for a very interesting interview. I was thinking, I would like your deliberations on if the Ukraine is going to be part of the EU, which I think would be a good thing, but there's a challenge as well. Look at Poland, look at other Eastern European countries where they have made elected leaders who are maybe not as democratic in our thinking here in Western Europe. What do you think about that? You see Viktor Orban as well in Hungary.
It's to me or to the... To me? Okay.
I'd be happy to help.
Yeah. Because we are not still members of the club, so I mean, we should ask those who are in the club how do you see it. Look, in general, if you look again at the history, you wouldn't find a model which existed for, I don't know, 1,000 years, in every, in the way, let's say, how the countries were built or unions were built, etc. So it has some natural developments sooner or later. In which direction it will be based on the current situation in those unions. In my view, as I said, I see still a huge potential for those countries on the European continent to grow, based on these similar approaches and vision. At the same time, you had Brexit. At some point, it was again, in my view, a little, I shouldn't say manipulation from the politicians, but very often some political leaders, how to say, persecute their own political interests, meaning to come to power. So how to come to power? What is the tool? To have closer access to the voters and to do what they may expect from me to do, or to promise something, which will be, let's say, which will sound very positive for their ears. So if you already have something that exists firmly for, let's say, decades, then somebody wanted, and these structures are already, more or less fixed, then somebody wants, to enter this structure, and it's very difficult because you already are more or less, fixed model of it. Then the guys decided, okay, I have to build something opposite to this, and then start saying, it's like Hungary, or it's like recently in Slovakia, Fico came to power, saying that I have to stop supplying weapon or military support to Ukraine. We will see, we hope he will not do it, because, why he started this? Because already parties who were in power, one of the main slogans for them were, we have to help Ukraine. So how to win the power on the same electorate, let's say, field, if already these parties are saying the same? So he started saying that, no, I have to stop it because, we are a small country and we have a lot of problems inside our society, whatever. So this, at some point, the development of the political debates in the countries. And then, based on that political debates, then journalists start also playing with that, writing different reports, articles, because it attracts attention from population. And then you develop some story based on these developments. This is sometimes how democracies are operating. And forgetting about what was in the main goal of creating EU. Without the EU, I'm more than sure we would have already maybe 10 wars on European continent. So people forget very easily about that, because you have had some territorial problems with Germany. Hungary has territorial problems with neighboring countries. Poland had, everybody. It was because of this development, because of these wars, every country has something. And if we allow this, to work on it, to be, in the topic of everything, then people start forgetting about what are the benefits from the EU and start thinking, okay, should this country be in it or not? How to behave, what to do, And then you are losing a little bit, a deeper sense why actually it was created. And then it may threaten, the existence of the union. On the other hand, it is also good to start this dialogue. For example, with also future membership of Balkan countries and Ukraine. Some politicians say that perhaps with such a group of 35 countries or whatever, it will be difficult to exist or to adopt legislation based on the unanimous support of each country of these regulations. So perhaps there is a need to change the voting process, where one country doesn't have a veto right to block everything, because 35 others are in favor, and only one politician who came to power based on these narratives against EU enlargement or whatever, he cannot allow, because his voters will say, but you promised that you will be against this. So he is trying to veto it. So in my view, at some point, it's a natural development. But if you look at the benefits from the enlargement, if you look at Poland 20 years ago and now, So you would see that you did the right choice, in my view.
One more.
Hi. Rotary and Rotarians all across the world are helping Ukraine, but inside Ukraine we also have our community with an increasing number of members. How do you evaluate our organization's work and help inside Ukraine, also compared to larger organizations like Red Cross and others? Where do you see our organization's strength?
You push me to say something not very positive. Not about your organization, but you mentioned another organization which we are not very happy about. Red Cross. These big organizations sometimes are too slow in their operations. And very often they have a lot of bureaucracy inside these organizations. I will give you some example also at the beginning of war. Big companies in Denmark immediately reacted, and the first way, you get used to this way of as I see it, of helping is to send money to the Red Cross, because they know that their, let's say, main goal is to help in such cases when the countries are in need, or there is a disaster or whatever. Then these organizations are actually have to send this help. So the huge amount of money was given to the Red Cross. But I remember very first these, first months when I was even struggling a little bit, arguing, maybe not that public, in the media, was the Red Cross representative here. I say, look, you are sitting on almost 800 millions of Danish crowns, and our people in Mariupol are in the occupied area. They don't have anything, they don't have food, etc. And you don't spend this money. Where are they? Why don't you send trucks with food to these areas? And they say that because of our mandate, we cannot risk with the lives of our people. So we have first to be sure that Russians will not shoot at our trucks, and then we will deliver food. I said, look, if you are afraid of your people being killed, then give the food to our people who know the territory very well, and we will deliver it by fields, through the forest. We will find a way. But we need it now. We cannot wait until somebody from Russian side will give you green light. So we had this fight. I'm frank with you, against how fast these organizations were running. And this is also partly the answer to what you are doing. Even the small contribution, but it's very direct and concrete. And that's what we also sometimes encourage now. Despite of sending everything, which you don't know, do we need it anymore or no? It's better to have a request from Ukrainian side. Okay, the village or the city has a problem with this, so we need, one fire truck, or we need one ambulance, or we need food, or we need some equipment for the school which have been destroyed, or a school bus, or a bus for the public transport. So we have different ways how to help, and that's, in my view, how we should maybe deal now. Maybe it's a little bit complicated because you don't have so many partner organizations from Ukrainian side whom you know. And unfortunately, there were also even some cases where these organizations, while competing, against each other, were struggling for the sponsorship, for donors, and then saying some bad words against their competitors, let's say. So they say, don't give this money to this organization, it's better give it to us. So we have things like that happening. But in general, I think now the main, my approach would be try to find the right partner and try to help directly. For example, Odense has a friendly relationship with Kyiv, or you may establish similar relationship with other city in Ukraine, and then focus on helping this city. And then you will know that every aid which you are doing will reach out to the final consumer of this aid, and it will be very targeted and what we need, instead of creating something, what else we can do. That's my answer. Sorry for being so long. You may always stop me. This is your right.
No, it's fine. I'll be happy to take another hour, but I think we're running out of time. If there's somebody burning with one last question, we can take that. We have one down here.
Hello, thank you. So, regarding elections, like Zelensky, who was elected in 2019, so an election would be coming up if this was normal conditions, right? Can you tell us a little bit about this process?
Sure.
Yeah, sure. It will be difficult to be very brief, but I'll try. First, my statement would be it's insane to hold elections during wartime. And whoever speculates on it, I think it's just speculation. Because if you are really serious about elections, then you should know that each and every election has its own process based on the legislation. And this process envisages a lot of different actions on behalf of both of the state and those who are running, of the political parties or individuals or whatever. And last but not least, the presence of international observers. So, second message here, elections are very costly for the budget. And we don't have this privilege to spend billions of hryvnia for election. We would prefer to buy drones and missiles or things, because the war is still there. Third, a huge issue is related to what to do with the regions close to the front line. Who may run, who may not? Should the soldier who is mobilized now have the right to participate in the election campaign? Yes, because this is stipulated by the Constitution. How he can execute this right? Impossible, because according to the mobilization law, he has to be in this specific area and fight against the aggressor. So there is a huge number of uncertainty around elections, where we say this is the reason why in many countries during the wartime elections are not held. And the last small but very important thing. Russia already realized that it is not capable to occupy the country using military tools. So the only way potentially they may succeed is to disunite us, both internally in Ukraine and externally among our partners, to create this unity. Elections is exactly something about the possibility of interfering into this and creating this unity. Because elections in itself, these campaigns already envisage that, different people will have different opinion on different things. And for sure, the first thing they will all speak about will be the war. Are we fighting correctly or not? Should we do it or not? Should we sit and negotiate with Russians or not? So it will create a huge problems to how to unite the society in my country, in my view first. And last, small but also very important thing. Imagine that, for example, European, let's say OSCE observers or European observers or whom we invite, will be afraid of coming, let's say, to Ukraine, or at least they will be stationed far away from the front line. And then, based on their assessment rules, they will say, as I was not present in that area, I cannot guarantee that the elections were held according to the standards and norms. So there is potentially a risk that European or OSCE observers, international observers, we name this way, will not recognize the result of the election. It will cause also a huge threat for us, because then Russia will immediately say this is illegitimate power, illegitimate government, illegitimate president, because he has not been recognized by the international observers. Then why should we deal with it? So it may have a lot of quite, unnecessary or development for us as we see it from our point of view to win the war.
Thank you so much for an interesting conversation. I think we will give a hand to the ambassador. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much to both of you.
Thank you.
And I was almost going to say, wasn't that a stop at the sentence? Because I didn't know if you do like I do. I have very, very long and never stopping sentences.
Yeah.
You know that?
Perhaps.
No.
Now I know.
Here, thank you. Just a very small gift, a very typical Danish.
We just spoke about corruption.
Yeah, this is small, and because of that, it's not.
Everybody says that it's a small, package of money.
Okay, anybody that wants this? It's on the Danish theme, hygge.
Okay.
I'm sure you have heard that word before. And then there's actually a gift certificate, because all speakers today, we have for them donated something to Ukraine.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Stay up here. And this is for some other words, not about hygge, but very, very clever, small, dict poems.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's good with a helpful friend. Mange tak for det, der går for rydende. Og jeg må indrømme, jeg har stor respekt for os. I respect a lot that you came back from Ukraine yesterday and you're here today. And yes, Benjamin is not divorced. Benjamin has a wife and has 2 kids, and he's here today.
Okay. Still.
Yeah. Thank you. And Benjamin, you can leave and you stay here. Now I've done something that's not in the program, because we have actually 4 Ukrainian friends here today, and you didn't know that. I didn't know that. I'll ask you to enter the scene. All 4 of you. We have Ghana that I met first a week ago. We had Ghana at lunch at our house. Ghana is a refugee. She left Ukraine. Why do I do this in English, Ghana? You prefer to speak Danish. So, Ghana, hun forlod forlod Ukraine for 1,5 år siden med sine 2 små børn. Ved siden af, der er der 3 ukrainere, som har boet i Odense i quite some time. Da vi nu skal til at overrække en pris, så til
You're well prepared.
Ja, I am. A pris. Denne pris er ikke kun for os her i distriktet. Den er fra Rotary i Grønland, Færøerne og Danmark. And I'll now continue in English. It is the Denmark, Greenland, Faroe Island Rotary Honorary Award 2023. And it's actually the first year. The awards honors a person, a group, an organization having made an extraordinary contribution in aiding others. The purpose of the award is to recognize and support individuals and causes in close alignment with the fundamental values of Rotary. The award will be given once per year, not necessarily every year. The section committee is made up by the members of Rotary Denmark Board of Directors. The award consists of I don't want to read that now. You'll see what it consists of. And this year, the award goes to President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine in recognition of his leadership and stewardship in the defense of the right of the Ukrainian people to live in peace, and freedom, and to democratically determine the future of Ukraine. And to Ukrainian people, presented by the President for courageously, I can't say that, protecting their liberty and their country. Please give them a hand. Thank you. I learned in here half a year ago that something like this is very important. And it really tells what we feel. In Denmark, we often do it with something like this and something more. And
you have very good tradition.
This is a sculpture, and it's made by a person, an artist, that is well known all over the world, known to fight for peace and to be a pain in the ass for lots of people sitting on the top of the societies. Jens Galschiøt, and this one is for your president and for the whole people of Ukraine.
Okay, wow, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You are fighting our fight, and we'll be behind you.
Thank you. It matters a lot for us, believe me. I mean, I will tell you one last thing. Sorry, again, I'm speaking too much, but you know, sometimes you have to express what you think. When we had this ambassadorial meeting, the chief general, our chief commander Zelensky, he said, you know, who are the most, let's say, or the best readers of news in the world? Soldiers on the front. And he says that, you know, they have two things to do. Either they fight, or when they have a little bit of free time, so they read a lot of, you know, news, what's happening. And every time when they read that Denmark donated Caesars, Germany gave us Leopard, United States provided us with HIMARS, he says that they are so much motivated to continue this fight, because they know that we are not alone. So believe me, your support matters a lot. And we all hope that the war will be over soon, and that we as Ukrainians will be able to invite you all to our beautiful country. Maybe we will ask you also help us to rebuild it. But most what we are, you know, dreaming about is, yeah, as the president said, to sit together with you and to say skål for our victories. Thank you.